So we moved him into there. He'd only lived in the other place 2 years, so he was kind of pissed at me. But he said, well, I ain't even been here long. I said, the other one he bought for my brother, he'd been there 20 years. And so I said, Pop, we got to get you here. But in honor of this guy and my mom, I'm here to do their bidding. Okay? I'm here to do their wishes, no one else's. And so, but this man, even though I was demanding things of him, I wouldn't really call it demanding, suggesting. He took it all. He did everything I ever asked of this guy. He helped me out at times I needed help, but he always did whatever I asked of him. And he knew that it was the right thing to do, even though he didn't like it. So we moved into the one-bedroom, one-bath condo, which, in my opinion, I think it's great. It's got a 7th floor view of Brookside Boulevard. We got really, really lucky. We got a good deal on it. And so, but he's very particular. My dad, when he grew up, worked 3 jobs and sometimes 4. And Pat Hicks over here will testify to this. He was a mailman by day, and I got to make a note of that. He was a mailman before they had Jeeps and trucks. Okay? Now think about that. That means he walked the route 20 miles a day. For 30 years he walked. He didn't have a Jeep, he didn't have a truck. These postmen nowadays, they're spoiled. But at any rate, 20 miles a day. That's what built up his calf to look like little oak trees. He didn't run, but this guy was in shape. He was in shape from the boxing, and then he went right to being a mailman after he got married. So he was in good shape, and that's probably another reason why he lived to 94. He stopped smoking when he was 20, and all he did was walk after that. And then eventually he started running in marathons and half marathons, which I was doing too, in my heyday, which I'm a few years removed from that now. But he worked at the post office from 5 a.m. until 3 p.m. Then he would major D or waiter at country clubs. Then he learned how to start painting, and he would do that in the summertime, in spring and fall. He taught Pat Hicks over here how to paint. He taught my brother Johnny how to paint, and he taught me how to paint. And we all made careers out of it for a while. Pat Hicks has a great story about how he used to have stains, and that he would not get pissed off at him, but he would hire Pat or somebody to help him, and he would always get on their nerves because he'd say, well, put more paint on that brush, boy. And boy, put more paint on that brush. But he was an incredible painter. He was great, and Johnny turned into an incredible painter, and I'm not too bad either, but I'm not for hire. So when we got into his new condo, and I promise I'll be wrapping up here shortly, before 9. But anyway, he wanted it repainted, and he's a painter, so he had a flair for colors and what he liked. And so we went and picked out the colors, and I came back and I painted, and I mean, he was kind of when I'd stop after 4 or 5 hours, he'd want to know why I was stopping. And I'd say, well, Bob, I'm tired. And then when I'd stop and ramp up stuff, he'd want to go in there and do it. And so, unfortunately, he would mix up the 2 shades of the color. And so I'd come back a few weeks later, and the living room now had the colors of his bedroom, and his bedroom now had the colors of the living room, which was shades of pale yellow. And I told him, I said, Pop, you're killing me here. You're painting this room 2 different colors, and I can't keep track of it. But that was an antsy person. He was always wanting to keep busy, always. Drove me nuts. And that's at 94. So, yeah, he turned 94 in July. So, he always wanted to keep busy. Now, I finally came back and finished it, and painted over everything he did, and we got everything going. He kept complaining about his mattress, so we bought a mattress. He couldn't believe how much they were. He said, mattresses are expensive, Ron, if you want a good one. And so he kept complaining about that. I said, look, do you want a good mattress or not? So we went and bought a mattress, got that done, and that was the last piece of the puzzle that we had to do. I put him a big screen, 60-inch in the living room. Of course, he could never figure out the remote. He was the worst person with remotes. I even put fingernail polish on it, 1, 2, 3, so he knew the order. 1 for power, 2 for channels, 3 for, and he still, every time I went back there, he had it jacked up or something. So I just raised my hand and said, Pop, I give up. You can't get this. But at any rate, he did have a big television. He Well, it's static most of the time, but I couldn't remotely control it from the time. But anyway, he got moved in there, and he was really, really, really happy for several months. He was getting to know the people there. A couple of them showed up today from that building. And he got used to taking the elevator down to do his laundry, coming up, read his paper in the hallway. So he really, really enjoyed it, in my opinion. He was still driving at that point. So then some other incidents started happening where he was backing into people and they had it on camera. So I had to take care of that stuff. But the bottom line is, I got really wise because I couldn't find him when I come back. And I called Shelley's and it wasn't there. And so I just got an Apple AirTag and put it on his keychain and it always kept around. So I always knew where he was on GPS. And that worked out pretty good. And then I went back to Atlanta and was hoping everything was okay. And he had a heart attack. He drove himself to the ER. I always told him, if your chest feels tightening or your arm starts hurting, go to ER. And he listened to that. Like I said, he always listened to me. And he drove himself there, and sure enough, he had a heart attack. And his cardiologist was the best cardiologist in Kansas City. His name's Gerald Mancuso. And I know that from other friends because they had told me when their friends went through there that the best cardiologist was this guy at St. Joseph's Hospital. And that's who was attending him. So I knew he was the best. But unfortunately, we got bad news after they did the angiocardiogram that goes up your arteries to look at your heart. And his front valve had been destroyed, and he was only on 30% of his heart volume. And the doctor, with him there, I wanted him to be there to hear this. The doctor said, look, I can't go in and fix you because you're older and you either die, or I can't guarantee that you would have that I can fix it. This doctor was very straight shooting, very honest, and you can't imagine how I appreciated that. At that point, I thought maybe he was going to give up because the cardiologist also said no more driving. And I knew that was going to kill him, that right there. So I had the cardiologist come in, and he said, do you want to live? Do you want to still do dialysis? And my dad still had his mind, even up until the night before he died. And he said, yeah, I want to live. I got things I got to do. I got to do conduct. So he had the great attitude out of that, knowing that he was going to have to live with the 30% heart. Now, whether or not he figured that out, a pie chart, 30%, but he knew he could walk, he knew he could eat, and he knew he had a life to live. And so from that point on, I waited a couple months, but I saw really early on that he wasn't going to be able to take care of himself. And so I actually waited probably another 3 weeks to tell him, look, we're going to have to go to Atlanta. And that was yet a third change. He moved once to his new condo, then he moved to another condo, now he's moving in with me. So he took that with grace. I know it hurt him. That didn't hurt him as bad as me telling him, you got to give me the keys to your truck. That killed him. But we got to Atlanta. We figured out a regimen. It was all good. He didn't really want to see my mom, and my mom didn't want to see him. So luckily for me, I got a big enough house that they never did. Of course, I don't know what would have happened. He had more of a mind than my mom does. My mom probably would have forgot it all, but it was still, I was always worried that he'd get up in the middle of the night, go to the bathroom, my mom would get up, and they would see each other. Both have heart attacks. But anyway, it never happened, which was good. But he had a nice little room. I had TV there. My father was perpetually cold. What is it with you old people? And I mean, my dad had his furnace on in the summer, and in the winter, and the spring, and the fall. His condo, and you can ask Stella and Ben, because they lived with him, was set to 90. 90 degrees in the summertime. And I kept telling him, Bob, what the hell? There was two things that I just could not win. It was that argument, and when it came time that he needed pull-ups. He was a proud Marine, and no older person wants to get to there. And I fought him tooth and nail. On the furnace deal, I had to cover up the vents downstairs and buy an air conditioner unit so that they could survive. And then when they moved out and I got there, he did the say, he didn't stop this because it was me. I told you he did everything for me. He would not turn that furnace off. So I had to get the air conditioner in my bedroom while it was 90 degrees around it. But anyway, luckily, when we moved to the new condo in Brookside, they didn't have fan forced. They had boiler. So he could never get it up beyond 80, which I was very, very thankful. But even when I was there, he kept it up pretty hot. But we had a good time there. His sister Lupe, my cousins Danny and Angie. And by the way, Lupe is a tremendous cook. I haven't met anybody better than my mom. And I don't say that lightly. My mom learned to cook all kinds of things. Dennis Rodriguez. My mom was a short order cook for Dennis for a couple of years when he lived out at the farm. What were some of the things that she made? Pozole. Anything you wanted, basically. It's got to be anything you wanted. But she expanded her cooking knowledge. And she was the only aunt that I know of that was making tamales, both sweet and regular. And all of our cousins can testify that, you know, they'd line up ordering tamales. And I remember coming back to Kansas City for a cheese game in the wintertime, and she was slaving out of the stove, over a stove, with her pressure cooker going, and she was trying to make, I don't know, 20 dozen tamales. And my cousins, unbeknownst to me, were putting their orders in. And she was cooking for them, and I finally told her, I said, hey, you need to stop that. Make a couple dozen and be done with it. And finally she heard me and she stopped doing it, but her tamales were wonderful. Dos de Oros on Blue Ridge and